Good evening, everyone. My name is Paula Rice, and I'm Manager of African American Outreach for CaringKind. And I want to welcome all of you to CaringKind's first annual Diversity Conference, Lifestyle Factors in Dementia Among African Americans, sponsored by our community partner, Health First. Tonight, we'll be exploring how lifestyle changes can affect and lower your risk for dementia. We're going to hear from leading experts in the field, a neurologist, a national spokesperson from Blue Zones, a former caregiver and author. Then we'll segue into a tantalizing cooking demo from a local chef and end with an exercise video from a lifestyle coach to inspire us to improve our own lifestyles. We'll also hear from CaringKind's new president and CEO, Eleonora Tornatore Mikesh, former president and CEO of the Alzheimer's Association's Connecticut chapter. So, to kick off today's event, we're going to receive a meditation from Pastor Dr. Lawrence Brown of Ephesus Seventh-day Adventist Church, who will bless us with healthy hearts and healthy minds. So let's close our eyes, take a deep breath as we listen to Pastor Dr. Lawrence Brown. And after Pastor Brown, we'll hear from our president and CEO, Eleonora Tornatore Mikesh.
Beloved, this evening I greet you and count it a privilege to share this life-changing moment with you. One of my favorite authors in the book Ministry of Healing has said, the relation that exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health to a far greater degree than many realize. Many of the diseases from which men suffer are the results of mental depression, grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust. All tend to break down the life forces and to invite decay and death. On the other hand, courage, hope, faith, sympathy, all love promote health and prolong life. A contented mind, a cheerful spirit is health to the body and strength to the soul. My hope is that this conference will be the doorway down a better path for all who hear. And to that end, let us pray. Father in heaven, in your word you declare, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. Lord, you designed us to move. You designed us to smile. You designed us to love. You designed us to care. You have said that a merry heart does good like a medicine. And so in this conference, may we learn to exercise more. May we learn to eat better. May we learn to have a better outlook on life. May we begin to experience that quality of life that you designed for us to have. May this conference veritably be the first day of the rest of our lives. May it be a blessed time, and we thank you in advance and count it as done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Eleonora Tornatore Mikesh. I want to take a few minutes to thank my wonderful staff, particularly Paula Rice, Jed Levine, and Dr. Ed Sizik for putting this together this evening. I also want to take a few minutes to thank our sponsor, like Paula mentioned, Health First, for our very first annual diversity conference. Although I'm new to CaringKind now, not new, about 25 years ago, I was at CaringKind as an intern, postgraduate intern. And because of the work at CaringKind, I was able to lead a very healthy and help so many families in the dementia field in long-term care for about 15 years. And like Paula said, for about 8 years was the CEO at the Alzheimer's Association for the state of Connecticut. I want to also let you know that this evening we have about 450 people who have registered. So we are so grateful for all of you that are tuning in this evening while we are in this remote mode. Also, let me thank the panelists for this evening, Dr. Bell, Nick Buettner, Dan Gasby, Melba, Lisa Charles, all friends of CaringKind. Without further ado, enjoy this evening.
Thank you, Eleonora. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for your support and for coming up with this idea of a diversity conference.
My pleasure.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun here. All right, so our first keynote speaker this evening is Dr. Karen Bell. Dr. Bell is a Bronx native and is professor of neurology at Columbia University Medical Center in the Taub Institute for Research on Alzheimer's disease and the aging brain. She's also an attending physician at New York Presbyterian Hospital. Dr. Bell will be discussing Alzheimer's disease and risk factors within the African American community. And her topic this evening is lifestyle factors and the aging brain. And I'd also like to say within your registration packet, you received a program with all the bios of all our speakers. So if you want to read those bios in more detail, please do. Please refer to that document. All right, Dr. Bell.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank CaringKind for inviting me to participate in this conference. I think it's a good thing to start up during Black History Month. The title of my talk is Lifestyle Factors and the Aging Brain, and I would like to focus this evening on the kinds of things that patients and their families ask me when they're wondering about dementia and changes they might make to make things to afford a better outcome. So I think that's what we're going to focus on this evening. Let me share my slides. Share screen. I think we'll start off by just going through some common conditions that affect overall brain health. And those are things like high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, cognitive impairment or cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, and other dementias, of course, stroke, traumatic brain injury, depression, and sleep disturbance. And I'm going to discuss many of these conditions. What is dementia? That's a big question that I get asked right up front. The term dementia is just an umbrella term for a group of symptoms that include difficulty with memory, problem speaking, word finding difficulty, trouble problem solving, and then behavioral symptoms that can run the gamut from restlessness to agitation to wandering and sleep disturbance. And in addition to those thinking or cognitive related symptoms, you also need to have some kind of decline in your ability to perform activities of daily living. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia. There are other types of illnesses falling under this dementia umbrella, things like frontotemporal dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies, vascular dementia, Parkinson's disease dementia, dementia related to alcohol use. So there are many types, but Alzheimer's disease is the most common and accounts, depending on the series, it accounts for anywhere between 60 to almost 80%. Alzheimer's disease is very prevalent in our society. More than 5.8 million Americans age 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias right now. That's a lot of people. Well, when we talk about dementia, we also consider risk factors for developing dementia. And it's important to mention during Black History Month that African Americans and Latinx are at increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, according to multiple research studies now. that makes Alzheimer's disease and dementia a health disparity. What about risk factors for cognitive decline and dementia? Those include some things that we can do something about, and then it includes things that we can't really change. So we can't change age. We all want to get older. None of us want to die young, and age is probably the #1 risk factor for developing the disease. Family history is also important. If you have a first-degree relative, meaning a parent or a sibling, a brother or sister with Alzheimer's disease, that increase your risk of developing the disease compared to someone who does not have a first-degree relative with the condition. If you have more than one first-degree relative with the condition, that increases your risk even more. You can't change your family history. But there are things that you can change. And this evening, you're going to hear a lot from different speakers about modifications that you can make. So cardiovascular disease is a risk factor for developing cognitive decline and dementia. And underneath cardiovascular disease, you've got diseases that cause cardiovascular disease that are more prevalent or more frequently found in our community that can affect cognitive decline. So diabetes and high blood pressure are two big ones. Smoking, midlife obesity, also large conditions that can cause decline in cognitive health. Education appears to be protective, however. It's considered one of the risk factors, but higher education, more years of education appears to be protective compared to lower years of education. Successful aging. Everyone wants to age successfully, not necessarily gracefully, but certainly successfully. And it really depends on your genes. It depends on your environment. Are you living in a safe environment, a healthy environment somewhere? You're going to hear later this evening about environments that don't give you access to the proper food. You all know that some people live in environments where they don't have access to health care. So your environment is also important in successful aging. And then lifestyle, which I'm going to spend the bulk of my time on, is something that's important for successful aging. If you make healthy lifestyle choices, you might maintain a healthy brain. Now, I don't want to imply that you can prevent cognitive decline or any kind of dementia by making lifestyle choices, because there is no data to show that, but it might reduce your risk of developing these conditions. So let's talk about overall brain health and risks to overall brain health. There are some medications or improper use of medications that can certainly be associated with cognitive decline. That's doesn't cause a permanent cognitive decline, but you can see cognitive difficulty if medication is being used improperly. Smoking, and I'll come back to smoking a little later. Excessive use of alcohol. Alcohol is a toxin on the brain, and in amounts that exceed moderation, it can cause cognitive decline. I've mentioned heart disease and diabetes and other health problems before. Now, diet, we're going to discuss diet. And so I'm going to go on and talk about sleep. Sleep turns out to be something that's extremely important for cognitive health, whether you have a sleep disorder, an actual defined sleep disorder like sleep apnea, which can cause cognitive decline or give you symptoms of cognitive decline. These things need to be addressed. If you don't sleep well, your overall health is going to suffer. Lack of physical activity or lack of exercise is also a risk to brain health. And then social activity. Now, something that we've noticed even more during these past 12 months of pandemic and social distancing is that having limited social activity or being alone most of the time is not good for your overall health. And for people who are experiencing cognitive decline, it causes further decline or more rapid decline. So that's something for us to take into account. I mentioned medications. There are some combinations of medications that affect how you think and can affect the way your brain works. So one of the things that I always advise patients, particularly at this time where people generally think with all of these electronic medical records that your doctors have access to all of your information, even from other providers. If you don't provide your healthcare provider with a full list of your medications, they're not going to know what you're taking, and they won't know if there are likely interactions between the medications that can be affecting the way your brain works or affecting your thinking or memory. Smoking. I said I was coming back to it. So smoking is terrible. The warnings have been on the packages since I was a little kid. So I'm not going to harp on smoking itself, but I just want to make sure that it's important to talk to all people of all ages, especially older people, about the benefits of quitting smoking. Smoking cessation is a topic that should always come up if you find that someone is smoking. Quitting at any time can lower your risk of developing stroke and cardiovascular disease like heart attacks. And it can also, reduce your risk of developing lung disease. It leads to better vascular circulation, and it doesn't expose people that you care about to secondhand smoke. So even though you might be 80 years old and feel, oh man, I've been smoking, I enjoy this, and I've gotten off scot-free, I don't have any health problems, you can always lower your risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke and cognitive decline by quitting. It doesn't cost a lot to quit. I mean, some people pay a lot of money for cessation programs, but there are free resources available to help folks who want to quit smoking. So that's something to do. Alcohol. Alcohol is a toxin. It can affect your brain. It can make your memory fuzzy. It can make you feel dizzy. It can slur your speech. It can cause balance problems. It can cause long-term memory problems and even alcohol-related dementia if you are using large amounts of alcohol for long periods of time. It is a toxin to the brain. So if you're having memory problems and you begin to stay away from alcohol, you might not find progression. The condition might not progress. There are some medications that you might be prescribed by somebody who doesn't know that you're regularly drinking that can be dangerous when mixed with alcohol. Everyone always asks me, what can I do to protect my brain? You have to take care of your overall health. You want to make sure that you're active and you're eating healthy type foods, you're learning new things, and you're connecting with people. So let's spend a little more time discussing each of these items individually. When it comes to taking care of your overall health, these past 12 months with the pandemic and people being afraid to go and see their healthcare provider, afraid to go to a hospital, they haven't been getting their recommended health screenings. Those are things that really should resume, because you can't protect your brain health if you're not taking care of your general health. So you want to manage your health problems like your diabetes, your hypertension, your elevated cholesterol. Those are all risk factors for poor cognitive health or cognitive decline. You want to make sure that you are reducing the potential for brain injury due to falls and other types of accidents, and Of course, you're going to quit smoking as part of your taking care of your health. What about eating a healthy diet? Well, the doctor is probably, your physician is not usually the person you should discuss the good diet with, because they don't have a lot of training in nutrition. A dietitian, who's an expert in nutrition, would be the person to really discuss this with. But what the guidelines say is that you should increase your intake of fruits and vegetables. You want to incorporate whole grains, reduce your fat, salt, and sugar intake, and have proper portion sizes. Now, the guidelines also talk about reducing meat or having leaner meats, fish and poultry, and lower fat dairy products. You're probably going to hear talk later this evening about other types of dietary changes that you can make. The Mediterranean style diet, you know, your healthy oils, your fish, your legumes, nuts, that type of Mediterranean style diet was the one that in research was associated with a lower risk of developing dementia. Physical exercise, getting moving, reduce your risk of diabetes, heart disease, depression, and stroke. And it also, more importantly, prevents falls. As we age, we become more susceptible to injuries because of falls. So the guidelines suggest that you get about a half an hour on most days of the week. And if you're not already exercising, then walking is generally something that's an easy, gentle way to start. You can join programs that help you move safely so that you don't fall. And of course, there's always the warning that you need to check with your healthcare provider if you're already inactive and you haven't been exercising and you want to start some kind of rigorous exercise program. What about doing something for your mind? Now, everyone's always telling you, do puzzles, do this, that, and the other. I just want to say, before I go into the different items, the clinical trials have not shown that these things prevent you from developing Alzheimer's disease or mild cognitive impairment or having cognitive decline. These activities, though, can be fun. They're part of social engagement and they're part of keeping your mind active. And there are active research studies going on right now to see whether any of these things actually work at slowing decline. So until they tell you that they don't work, I think doing something that's fun should be a way that you help your overall cognitive health by keeping your mind active. So mentally stimulating activities. That doesn't mean watching television unless you're watching a game show and you're shouting out the answers right along with the contestants. Reading books, or if you have a shorter attention span and can't read books, then magazines on a topic of your interest would be just fine. Playing games with other people would be great. Doing puzzles. This can be word puzzles, number puzzles, can be jigsaw puzzles, any kind of puzzle. Learning something new is important, we think. So learning a new language, learning a new art or craft would be something to do. You all know people who retire, and there are probably two kinds of people who retire. The group that retires and is just so busy they don't have time for anything. They don't have time to babysit their grandchildren or any of those things because they're just so busy. The day just disappears. And the other type of person who retires and believes that all they have to do is just sit around. I've worked all my life and I don't want to do anything else. I just want to sit down. Well, we know that's bad for you. You need to learn new things. You need to be social through volunteering. Doing things for others is a brain stimulating activity, and it also counts as a social activity. You can take a class. You can teach a class if you have a skill or a craft that's interesting to other people. So this is all part of keeping your mind active. Keeping your mind active is different from keeping your body active. And we think that both are important. Staying connected. Having social engagement is important for overall cognitive health. We know that social activities are linked to reduced risk for developing health problems, including dementia. That is why having social engagement is so important. It also is important not just for reducing your risk of developing dementia, but if you're having cognitive decline, having social activities, social engagement is also important. During these COVID times, we've found that the lack of stimulation, the lack of social engagement has caused our patients with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias to decline precipitously. They went from having day programs and activities where they could engage to not having any kind of social contact because everyone is trying to protect them. So this has been something that we've noticed is a big problem. But even if you are well, you need to make sure that you're maintaining yourself connected to other people. People who have meaningful activities say they're happier and healthier, and we know that happiness and health are extremely important after going through 2020. So what can you do tomorrow to start enhancing or protecting your overall brain health? Just make a start. Pick one thing that you could do now. Just one thing. You can start by taking a 10-minute walk as your exercise because maybe you're too busy with Zoom meetings or other activities that you're doing at home, laundry, cooking, cleaning. I call those chores, but some people call them activities. You're too busy with those things to get a walk, do that. If you hate vegetables, add just one serving of vegetable each day. Make an appointment for the health screenings. I know you've been putting off going to the doctor because of COVID. Now's the time to make an appointment for your general health screenings. You won't know if your blood pressure is properly controlled or if you need a change in the medications or doses of the medications you're using for diabetes unless you get that health screening. So we want you to make a start, write down what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, and then get support, get some buy-in from family and friends by telling them, I'm going to make this overall start for my cognitive health. And there are community groups out there that can help you with programs, be they virtual or eventually our lives will return to normal and we will have in-person groups. But those things are important. It's like I always tell people who are concerned about their overall cognitive health or people who have developed Alzheimer's and are about to start treatment. Medication can't do everything for you. It can do some things, but it can't do everything for you. You have to do these other things: social engagement, exercise, physical activity, and brain stimulating activity. Those are all important. Whatever is good for your overall cardiovascular health is good for your brain health. I want to thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. Thank you, Dr. Bell, for that excellent presentation. I want to let all the participants know that at the end, if you have questions for the speakers, we have 3 speakers tonight. If you have questions for the speakers, please enter them into the Q&A, and then we will answer those questions. We'll have a little panel discussion at the end of all of our speakers. So our next keynote speaker this evening is Nick Buettner. Nick is VP of Product at Blue Zones and is responsible for leading the development and implementation of the Blue Zones project to 51 communities in 12 states throughout the US and Canada. Blue Zones are communities where individuals are found to live over 100 years of age due to lifestyle and diet. Nick's topic this evening is Blue Zones, a community approach to well-being. Nick.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can.
Yes.
Perfect. That's all I needed to hear. You know, what I want to do is kind of share with you guys a little bit of the work we do around community health and some of the research that we've done tied to the Blue Zone program. And a lot of it really, I think, dovetails very well with Dr. Bell's amazing presentation. First, just a little bit about kind of who we are. You know, from Blue Zones, what we try to do at the end of the day is to empower everyone everywhere to live longer, better. To break that down, and I just need to get my slide. There we go. What we try to do is co-create opportunities, tools, processes, and environments in communities that really help everyone everywhere, no matter what your socioeconomic status, the organization, or whatever community you live in, no matter what your zip code. We want to try to help them live longer, better, to help live so that everybody can live a healthy, more purposeful, long-lasting life. Because at the end of the day, it is really about the quality of the life we live, just as much as it is the quantity. The work that we do came out of some research that my brother Dan and I did to places in the world where people are living the longest life. According to the Danish twin studies, 80% of how long you live, 80% of how long I live, is determined by lifestyle factors and our habits. Only 20% is genetics or healthcare. If that was true, what we wanted to do was find those places in the world where people are living the longest life. Lowest rates of middle-age mortality, reaching 100 rates 10 times higher than we're doing it here in America. And as you see, we found 5 places. And you notice that place in Russia where they're drinking a bottle of vodka a day and smoking a couple packs of heaters didn't make the list. Well, that's because we tried to demographically confirm this. We partnered with demographers that were looking at the birth and death records and physicians that were doing physicals on those individuals. We brought in some national experts to really try to diagnose and follow these people's lives for 100 years so that we understood what they did and how they lived this longevity, this amazing lives. Now, these places were places like Sardinia, where you have the highest rates of male centenarians, where for every 200 births, you have 1 centenarian, compared to here in America, where it's about for every 6,000 births. It's a place where at 102, you're still riding a bike, and at 104, you can actively chop wood, and you can beat somebody 65 years your junior at arm wrestling. That's my brother Dan. I always like kind of giving him the business and teasing him about the fact that this old guy just whooped him. A second place was Okinawa, Japan. And if you look at these stats, I mean, I think they're all amazing. What I like the best is the top one, the world's longest disability-free life expectancy. What I mean by that is they tend to live a long life and die very quickly at the end. There's a term, compression of morbidity. It's a time between when you get sick and when you die. It's where we spend most of our healthcare dollar here in America. It's when you need somebody to help kind of take care of you and support you in your life. Well, here in America, on average, it's about 4.5 years, but in Okinawa, it's less than a year. These are people that are living out their purpose and their dreams all the way through their life. The other thing that I found interesting in Okinawa was there's Framingham studies that came out that were, let me back up. 30 years ago, average American, 3 best friends. That's now down to 1.5 friends. And if you can tell me where you get that half a friend, I'd appreciate it. I kind of think it's social media where you get like 5 Facebook friends and 2 Twitters equals. I'm kidding. But if you have less than 3 friends in your life, you're defined as lonely. And the impact that that has on your life is about the same as smoking 20 cigarettes a day. Isolation kills. Now, the way in Okinawa that they try to fight this isolation is they create these things called moais. When you're about 5 years of age, your parents will put you with kids about your same age, and they'll cultivate those relationships. So by the time they reach 20, you have that foundation that allows these relationships to last a lifetime. Now, the reason I'm showing you this picture, these 5 women have belonged to the same moai for 97 years. Their average age is 102. They get together every night. They drink our mori, the Okinawan whiskey. They talk about the day's events. They even argue about who that guy liked best back in 1939. It was me. It was me. But the interesting thing about this relationship is I had a chance to ask the young lady on the right in this image, what does this moai mean to you? They call these things moais. And she said, every morning when I get up, I slide open my front door and I look out to see if my friends' doors are open. And if they're not, I go out and check on them. These are people that are growing old without the need of a long-term care nurse. They're growing old with the support of their community and the support of their friends. In Loma Linda, California, our 3rd blue zone, it's an Adventist community. It's, you know, if you didn't know, one of the biggest number here in America, one of the biggest drivers of our health is the zip code you're born into. There is a better chance here in America, you know, from right across the street, within a 3-mile radius, you can see a difference of 5 to 7 years of longevity in this country. Now, an Adventist who are living by San Bernardino, they're living in, you know, outside of LA, they're gaining 10 years on average, more than the average American of life. And it's not their genetics, because they are a melting pot of different cultures. Hispanic, African American, European descent, it doesn't matter. But the other thing I really liked about this culture is they have this strong sense of purpose. You know, here's a guy named Ellsworth Wareham, who I met when he was 94 years old, multi-millionaire. And what he wanted to do is build a privacy fence. And so he calls up a contractor. Contractor goes, sure, we can build it for you. It's going to cost you $7,000. You know, Ellsworth said, well, for that price, I'm going to build it myself. And what you could see him doing is shoveling over the next couple of days, shoveling dirt and pouring cement, pounding in stakes. And 3 days later, perhaps predictably, Ellsworth could be seen in the operating room. Ellsworth is actually the surgeon in this image, not the patient. Ellsworth at 94 years old was doing multiple open heart surgeries every month. And this is a guy who retired at 100. Loma Linda, California was the 3rd one, or the 4th one that we found. I'm sorry, Loma Linda was 3rd. This is the 4th. It's the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. It's a place where if you reach age 50 here, there's a better chance that you're going to make it to 100 than anywhere else in the world. And our last blue zone, the 5th blue zone, is Icaria, Greece. It's an island off the coast of Turkey. It's a place that adheres to the Mediterranean diet in higher percentages than anywhere else. And some believe this Mediterranean diet and the addition of 3 herbs work as a diuretic. And it's one of the reasons why we almost saw no vascular dementia in Icaria. So what we did is and I think it's a big kind of driver around it, but I don't think it's the whole story. I think it's more around the 9 commonalities that we saw through all the blue zones that were just as big a drivers around Alzheimer's and their well-being. And they're things like they get up every morning and they move naturally. They walk to school, they walk to their friend's house. Their houses were designed like in Okinawa, you're getting up off the ground. They're deconvenienced. So you're getting this natural movement in your life without having to go to a gym. They had the right outlook on life, starting with downshifting. You know, I've traveled all over the world, and I can tell you this: that no matter where you go, people have the same worries that you and I have. They worry about money, they worry about their health, and they worry about their kids. The difference is in the Blue Zone communities that have these simple techniques that help reduce that stress that's tied to most age-related diseases. The last thing, and Dr. Bell talked about this too, is its sense of purpose. I don't know why, sorry about the text here. It's a strong sense of purpose. The two most dangerous years of your life are the year that you're born and the year that you retire. You are 30% more likely to die the year that you retire than your last year of work. Now, why is that? It's because he said, you know what, I've been wanting to do that running of the bulls for a year. I want to go hang gliding. No, it's because we live this purposeful life. We get up and we have to raise our family, we go to work and do our gardens. We have our hobbies. We have all these things that kind of keep us active and keep us moving, and we lose that sense of purpose. In the Blue Zone communities, whether you're 20 or 100, they not only had a sense of purpose, but they could articulate that sense of purpose. And people who can articulate their sense of purpose live 7 years longer. That third column is diet. Eat wisely. They had a little bit of wine in their diet. People who have a healthy relationship, there is research out there that actually says it's good for you. But they also focused on more of a plant slant. They weren't vegetarian or vegans, but they ate the whole foods. They ate really strong diets, 90% plant, 65% carbohydrates, grains, sweet potatoes, greens, beans, magical fruit. They had meat less than 5 times a month, and usually those portion sizes were a lot less than we get at the Hungry Heifer. They're about the size of a deck of cards. And fish less than 3 times a week. And they had very limited dairy, but mostly from grass-fed animals. They had nuts, water, tea, coffee, and wine. But I think the other piece with it is they had a lower caloric intake tied to that than we tend to have here in America. If you look at those trends here in America and what we're doing around our caloric intake, I think everybody can agree we might be eating a little bit too much. And I think the foundation that holds everything else up is how we connect with our family all the way through their life. These were people that were surrounded by loved ones. They're investing in their kids and they invested in their family. They stayed married. They had a strong sense of faith. We, Blue Zones, huge fans of faith. We don't care what your faith is. There were 2 universities, small universities, came out, did some research that people who have a strong sense of faith and show up at least 4 times a month live 4 to 14 years longer. Now, again, we at Blue Zones, huge fans of faith, don't care what your faith is. I'm just telling you what the research says. And that research was done by Duke and Harvard University. And the last one is our friends matter. According to the Framingham study, if your 3 best friends are unhappy, if your 3 best friends are overweight, if your 3 best friends smoke or drink too much, there's a 150% chance that you do as well. That if you look at health traits, they actually flow through a community in the same way a virus does. Now, think about that. Are you healthier with that friend that likes to go do a walk or do plant-based diets? Or are you healthier with that friend that likes to sit on the couch all night and watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians while eating chicken wings? Now, I guarantee a lot of you right now are writing down names of friends that you're kind of got to get rid of in your life. But before you do that, you also need that friend that you can pick up the phone when you're having a bad day and call them. And that friend will actually pick up and listen. So it's friendships that are just as important, right? So here's the rub. Here's the challenge. In the Blue Zone communities, this wasn't an exercise program that they did to shed that holiday weight. Instead, this is the way they lived their lives all the way throughout. This was their communities, their traditions. I never met one person at age 50 who said they wanted to go on a Blue Zone diet. You never met somebody at age 100 who said they wanted to exercise. This was their stuff. So how do you bring these lessons here to America? Well, I have a point of view on If you look at healthcare here today, it tends to be that relationship that you have with your doctor, right? I'm sick, I'm acute. I come in and I spend time with my doctor and I am helping, and they're really good at it. And they've added things on, the case management, disease management, behavioral risk coaching, and all that other stuff. And it's great. But the problem is, if you're at risk but haven't engaged with your physician, or if you're healthy, this model doesn't do a lot for you. Now, you can go in and get your physical and they can say, hey, you're pre-diabetic, you need to exercise or eat healthier. But the problem is, these solutions lack behavioral science. I know I shouldn't eat a Big Mac. I know I shouldn't drink that big 55-gallon drum of soda or sit on a couch all day. But we as humans, we do it anyways, because at the time we do that action, it doesn't kill us. I can eat a Big Mac every day for the next 10 years of my life and not die. But eventually, all of a sudden, you get that broader disease that comes out of it. Now, what we know now in these emerging models is the relationships, those relationships that you have with your friends and family, and those places where you work, live, play, and pray, or the culture, social norms, the policies of a community can be bigger drivers of our health, the environment, than that relationship that you have with your doctor. Because on one side, you have to be experts at extracting individual will, when on the other side, what you're getting is the support from your family and friends. You're getting these ubiquitous nudges that just make being healthier a little bit easier. On one side, it tends to be temporary. What we know from science is only about 3% to 5% of the population can stick with a diet. Doesn't work for most people. When at the other side, these are semi-permanent to permanent changes in our environment. So if we're thinking about healthcare, we're thinking about how do you really create better health for the people that are at risk but not yet sick, you have to understand, how are we bringing these things together? Because on one side, it's hard to engage that individual. There's high levels of recidivism. Like I said, it's inconsistent. I might have one doctor tell me one thing, or another doctor tell me something else, and it's fractional. It's only for the population that's interacting with that doctor. When at the other side, these environmental changes are unconscious. They're habitual. They're sustainable. And ideally, what you do is you reach a tipping point in a community where everyone's coming together around health and wellness. And if you can measure them right, understand outcomes and impact that really change the community, I think you got a recipe here. Right? And again, it's a recipe as to where does that care for the patient meet the health of the public. Now, to say it another way, we in America, we are challenged by our environment. We have environments that make it difficult for us to be able to walk or bike to where we need to go to work, for us to use mobile transportation to be able to get to work, or just, let's be honest, having trust that our kids aren't going to get run over and why they're biking and getting around. We're challenged in a very car-centric society. When it looks at our food, we have food deserts in this country where it's hard for us to get the right foods. And when we go into these places, they tend to, the advertising and how they push don't tend to promote those healthier choices in our life. Instead, what we tend to do is promote the ones that might not be as healthy in our environments. No matter where we go, we're being bombarded by these messages. And those things that are coming out now, those fun things, they tend to look cool, but they tend to be those things that are the least healthy for us, like vaping right now in our communities. So when we look at health, I believe there's no silver bullet. It's more silver buckshot, and excuse the gun analogy, but how do you look at a lot of things that you're putting out into the community that drives a healthier environment that makes health easier for us as individuals to be healthier versus the environments that we live in now? Most of what you do, 10-mile radius where you work and where you play, if we can optimize that environment for health and well-being, then it's not something that individuals pursue. It just ensues because of our environment. let me give you some examples of what we try to do blue zones, the things that we're focusing on. How do you look at your home and your home environment? Quick example. What's on your counter? Is it a bag of chips or is it fresh fruit? So if you want that impulse snack, you know, what are you reaching for? Is it healthier or is something easier? I'm not saying get rid of the chips, but how do you design your kitchen to make that healthy choice a little bit easier? How do you create better social networks in community to break down isolation and create more support around healthy activities? How do you help people get a sense of purpose and identify those strengths and do an asset analysis of those things they really want to do? And once you define as an individual your purpose, how do we ensure that every day when you wake up, you're able to live it out? How do we look at the places where you work, live, play, and pray, and set up those environments that, again, that healthy choice is easier? We spend most of our waking hours at work sites. The number one thing that indicates whether or not you want to go to work is whether or not you have a good friend in our work sites. You know, how do we break down challenges and really set up good environments? Grocery stores that have access and affordable foods, restaurants that have better portion sizes and better choices, schools that really drive not only the connection between health and well-being to educational curricular outcomes, but also laying that groundwork for that student that in 20 years is going to be an adult and passing it on to the next generation. These are generational solutions. And then also, how do you look at policies in the community? Policies that create a healthier food system that focuses in on how do I have better access? How do we make it affordable so just the people that can afford Whole Foods can get the healthy stuff, but everybody can get it? And how do we recreate the food skills that we've lost in this generation around how to make food taste good? Because I can tell you to eat Brussels sprouts, but if you don't like them, you're not going to eat them. So how do you make the healthier foods taste good? And how do you do it in a way that resonates with the culture of a community, with the foods that they like? How do I make it harder for us to light up in our communities or for our kids to start vaping and smoking? And how do we look at our environment, our built environment, our walkability, bikeability, and our ways just to be able to move naturally, or more importantly, come together as a community, that placemaking in a community? And I believe if you can layer on the Power 9 activities, you have a recipe for success. But this is only part of it, because I threw out these, and these are the areas that we focus in on every community, but they interact different in each community because every community is different. And when you look at doing blue zones, when you look at doing health and wellness, what you have to focus on is first making sure that you have the right readiness and understanding from your key leaders in your community so that everybody is coming together around a common vision around health and are raising their hand and understand and are willing to support it. Because if you break down this stuff, then you're not hitting that life radius. You're not hitting everyone in that life radius. The next piece is you have to then from there create the foundation of the work. To create a blueprint, a master plan that's based in evidence that everybody signs off on, the leadership and the strategic partnership stands off on, that is based in measurement, that's based in impact and science. But more importantly, it has to understand the wants, needs, strengths, and challenges of the community. So to give you an example of that piece of it, if you can go in and really do good listening sessions and bring in the right experts to be able to listen to what do you want your community to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. If I can bring in the right leadership or the right experts to be able to listen, what do you want your community, what are the strengths and what are the challenges, you understand. And Fort Worth, what they talked about was there's food deserts. There's no way to get these foods out of the corner stores. So what we did is we focused on finding a store owner in a community and getting them on board, get them willing to work with us, to be able to create better access to healthy foods. When initially what you had was a junk food emporium where drugs were sold outside. Instead, what they focused on is that healthier environment. And then from there, you can, once you do those listening in those micro communities, you can bring them up to the broader political leadership to ensure that we have the financial and the dollars. So they created access and economics for these corner stores so that they could buy these foods and make it economically viable for them to be able to be those partners. And then right down the street, there was a school that we were able to engage to not only do that wonderful marquee behind them that creates good placemaking, changes the look and the feel of this to a really good looking store. And then you follow that up with having them engaged and understanding and eating healthy. And now this is just in a 3-year period. This was just one of the 25 different policies and 25 different things that we did in that community tied to it. But it starts off again with that foundation and that blueprint that then you get that transformation. And ideally, what we look at is certification. And certification is tied to really making sure that we're driving down those risk factors that impact Alzheimer's, moving naturally, the whole foods, friends, broader friendships, and keeping your mind engaged, and those things, again, that Dr. Bell mentioned, but really looking at how are we making sure that we're measuring, focus on driving down things that actually make a difference, but are semi-permanent to permanent. Now, with Blue Zones, we're in 58 communities impacting about 3.75 million people's lives, almost 4 million lives. And whether it's a small community, about 18,000 people in Albert Lee, that where you saw a decrease in medical claims, an increase in tourism, but also add-on grants that paid for other projects, or in beach cities where you have a 55% drop in childhood obesity. What does that mean for a community? You know, or $72 million in savings, or people, the way that when they get up in the morning, they're evaluating their life better. They like their life better now than they did 7 years ago. Or Fort Worth, Texas, I showed you some examples there. They're seeing about $20 billion worth of savings just from reduction in smoking. And then lastly, even in work sites, we're seeing a big thing, but as measured by Gallup, these are sustained improvement. Now, I want to wrap up really quickly so we can get to the last speaker, but the last thing I want to say here is I've done a lot of research on what works and what doesn't work around community health programs, and I believe that here are the biggest pitfalls. And number one is you need that broad base of leadership that comes together around a common vision around health. And then once you have those champions, those leaders coming together, you have to make sure that you have the right resource, both economic and financial. And then you need a design that's based in evidence, that is with sustainable expertise and sustainable solutions that are put in that. And lastly, and most importantly, everybody who's part of that plan needs to be accountable. They need to own the work that they're doing to be part of it. And it has to be measured, because if you're not measuring it, how do you manage it? How do you adapt? How do you change when solutions aren't meeting the income or the output that you go on as an organization? Now, I don't have to tell anybody here that we have a healthcare crisis here in America. If current trends continue, about over 50% are going to be obese in this country. We spend over $4 trillion on diseases that are preventable. This one scares me. For the first time in history, the life expectancy of our kids is less of that of our own. And it's not because we're bad parents. It's not because our parents loved us more than we love our kids. It's because of our environment. You make about 280 decisions every day when it comes to our health. And most of them are involuntary. You can't fill up a tank of gas, walk to a grocery store, look at social media without being bombarded by unhealthy messages. And individual responsibility is important. Individual discipline is important, but discipline is a muscle, and muscles fatigue. You break down, you do that unhealthy act. So what I wanted to leave you with is when you're thinking about those risk factors around Alzheimer's or anything else, those risk factors that I believe are tied even into the Power Nine and those things. It's how do we set up our environments? How do we work together in partnerships with our communities to and with everybody in that community around this common vision, so that we're setting up environments where everybody, no matter what your socioeconomic status, no matter what your education level, no matter how you interact with that community, is being impacted by environments that make that healthy choice easier for all of us. And with that, I'm going to stop presenting. I just want to thank everybody for your time, and I'll be around in a little bit to answer anyone's questions if they have it. Paula, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Nick. I've gotten a lot of compliments in the chat box about what an excellent presentation that was. So everyone really, really appreciated it.
I'm sure there's a couple in there that said, oh, where'd you get this? Yeah.
Some of your friends. All right, thank you. So our next speaker this evening, and I want to remind everyone, I have your questions in the chat box and the Q&A, and we will answer them at the close of our next speaker. We'll have a Q&A session. So our next speaker, Dan Gasby, is a former caregiver and author of Before I Forget. The book chronicles the life, love, and day-to-day challenges of caring for his late wife, entrepreneur, and restaurateur, B. Smith, who died of early onset Alzheimer's in 2020. So Dan will be talking about and discussing caregiver burden and stress and what that whole responsibility and that journey feels like. Dan, are you there?
I'm here. Can you see me? Can you see me? Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Eleanor, who I've known on several different occasions and situations, because she's done a marvelous job espousing what needs to be done as you move through the period of time when you can't take care of yourself as a person that is going through the throes of Alzheimer's and dementia. You know, this was especially important for me to do this tonight as I approach the 1-year anniversary of my wife's passing. Well, let me put it to you this way. We had 28 years of an amazing run. We never had an argument. We moved as one. We did amazing things together, from the restaurants to a TV show, to a magazine, to books, to radio, to lifestyle products, to even thinking about we came very close to doing a hotel. But the thing that was most important was that we were two sides of one coin. And as a husband, I married the best person I could have ever met. She was kind, she was caring, she was intelligent, she was sweet, and she was strong. She was lace and steel. And I could look across the room and talk to her with my eyes. And it's been a year of transition, but more importantly, from about 6.5 years ago when we first got the diagnosis that she had Alzheimer's, and we started to look at all the things over a 12-year period, because 5 of those years, I knew something was wrong, but it was not what I would call overt, because she was so strong and her personality was so endearing and commanding that she would do little things out of the ordinary, and I would go, you know, WTF is what I would say. And then she would fall back into what her normal routines were. But then it got to be more and more, sort of like if you didn't know a storm was coming, you get a little rain, then you get a little more rain, and then you get squalls, and then all of a sudden you find out it was going to be Hurricane Sandy, and you were going to experience that for the next 5 to 7 years. And so it got to a point where we were always open and honest with each other, and we went to doctors, and they did cognitive tests. And in doing so, we found out that she had beta amyloid plaque on her brain, which is the white sticky stuff that causes the neurons to basically degrade and not be able to communicate from one part of the brain to the other, to just keep it in a simple level. And when she got the diagnosis, she thought it was that because we had, prior to that, went to a specialist and had cognitive testing and showed that her cognition had declined severely. And with all of the guts and glory that she had in her heart, she started to read up about it. And when we finally got that fateful diagnosis at Mount Sinai, we walked from Fifth Avenue to and 101st Street to about 96, 95th Street. And she looked at me and she said, sweetie, I know what this disease is. I know where it's gonna take me. And I want you to tell the story. Tell it openly, tell it honestly. And I want you at a point, from what I gathered, and she was a voracious reader. This was a woman who only went to high school, but she had a PhD mentality. She was a student of food, of fashion, of how to get the most out of life, but also she had an interest in well-being and care. From the eyebrows down, she was in immaculate shape. She was perfect. And she says, tell the story. And when the time comes and you need to move on, I want you to move on. And we talked about that even before. But what it did was it set up a scenario that we wrote a book, before I forget, as you mentioned. But what we started to do was we started to immerse ourselves into what Alzheimer's is all about. And what happens when you start to be open with people about it. And people started to pull away. Because we had become, or were, a couple that was very influential, quote unquote, it couple. And people didn't want to see that, or they didn't want to realize that what they were looking at was what could happen to them. And the more we started to see people pull away, the more I started to invest time in understanding what Alzheimer's, what dementia is, what the whole notion of when you have problems above your eyebrows and below your hairline, all of the mental things that could happen to you in your brain. It made me realize that it is even more important, and particularly in the African-American community, because we don't like to express our weaknesses or the things that we can't achieve or don't get right. And in doing so, it made her want to be out there that much more, and it made me want to protect her that much more. And so we went through a whole metamorphosis. And she was always, as the Nick said and the good doctor talked about, we were always conscious of diet and exercise, of meditation, of all of those things. But at a certain point in life, you know, the only thing that separates anyone who's looking at this show, this webinar, and another mammal is your brain. Your brain is the game. It separates us from all other animals, the ability to have introspection, the ability to synthesize, to analyze, to ruminate, whatever you want to call it, but it gives us our humanity. And as she devolved more and more, it became more and more of a burden, more and more of a sacrifice. And it took its toll. It took its toll because there were times where she would do things that I just couldn't believe, because I still saw the same beautiful person. And that's the toughest thing, I think, for caregivers until it just becomes so apparent, is that they're working with a person who may outwardly look the same, or even as we all age naturally, they're not the same. And you're not the same person because you've got to take on more and more of the responsibility and the burden of caring for someone who can't care for themselves. There is nothing lonelier than being two people living half a life. And it took me through the depths of despair. It took me down to a place that I wanted to just give up. There was not a day that I didn't say to myself, I would fantasize of just walking away and not coming back. I would have that fantasy. And I say that to each and every one of you who are online, because there's not a person out there who's caring for someone right now that your whole life changes. Your whole life becomes, unlike a child. When a child is born, you care for them and they evolve. They become, the thing between a parent and a child is that eventually they grow apart, they grow up, and they have to move on. With someone who's going through Alzheimer's or going through dementia or who is incapacitated, the longer they live, the more you take on their responsibilities. And I realized as I was going through this, I had to be able to talk to someone. And I talked to a therapist, which many people don't want to mention or talk about. I talked to a couple of real close friends, which is very important. As Nick and the good doctor, you have to have outlets. And I realized I'm telling you right now that this disease and being a caregiver will make an atheist pious and will make a pious person want to become an atheist. You are at the depths of despair. You have to deal with so many different things, and at the same time, everything else around you, people only see snapshots of what's going on. Family and close people will come and say, well, she's not that bad, or they don't understand the disease, and they think it's only the lack of memory or the repetition of asking the same questions. No, it's more than that. It's the 24/7, 365 chewing glass, excruciating situations of them doing things that are so out of character for them, but also out of character for what you expect another human being to do while you're with them. That takes you out of your natural comfort zone. And so what you have to do, and I went through it, you have to maintain their dignity, and you have to find a way to maintain your sanity, because they will drive you to a point of exhaustion. They will drive you to a point of utter hopelessness. You know, people who have the responsibilities of caring for another person tend to get sicker more often, tend to be less able to heal when they are sick, tend to have greater chances of depression, of alcoholism, of opioid use, of just having a maudlin situation always like a cloud is over their heads. And they get to a point where they want to give up, or they go into almost a robotic situation where nothing is right. It's sort of like no matter what happens, if you have or have had a stomach problem, doesn't make a difference how sunny the day is. You don't feel the sunshine. You only know that your stomach, your internal gut is in pain. And that's one of the things that is so important, is that you have to understand at a certain point, you've got to reach out for others to help you. I did, and it made a big difference in my life. And what also happened was that I had to allow myself to be angry about the situation, to curse at the situation, to want to get away from the situation, and at the same time understand that it's a natural occurrence to feel that way, and to forgive yourself. To understand that you have to be able to allow yourself to feel that I through the course of the final 5 years, I gained weight. I drank too much, and then I hit a wall. And I said to myself, I am not going to let this disease beat me. And I had to restructure my entire life. Not that I wasn't healthy or didn't do certain things traditionally or over the course of our lives, but I was in a war. I was in a war, and I was in an abusive relationship with the best person in the world that I've ever met, because you are being abused. It's a form of domestic terrorism. The person does things that, whether they're destroying something in the house, or you've got to watch them with knives, or you worry about them turning the gas on and the fire doesn't light up, and they turn a light on and blow the house up, or turning the water on in a bathtub while you're not looking, and all of a sudden the water overruns and you're with the person outside for an hour and a half, and the water falls from one floor down 3 floors, and it destroys half of 3 rooms. And they say, hello, honey, how are you? And you want to say, but do you know what you just did? And they don't. And then you try to explain that to family and friends. And usually the most difficult part of that explanation is they're looking at it from the standpoint of they're seeing a snapshot. They're not seeing what transpired before and what you're going to deal with after. They're not seeing that someone dropped a glass and you stepped on that glass, and now you've got to get 8 stitches. And then you may get a foot infection because of that, but you still have to deal with the person, and they come by and they spend an hour or 2 hours and they go back, and they don't realize that you're up at night walking on that same foot. I'm talking to everyone here who knows all of those little things that people have done while you're caring for them, that the people around you, and particularly close relatives, many of them can give you advice, but they can't give you the support that you need. And you have to really try to find and be honest with yourself. It could be your sister, your brother. Usually it's somebody close. They know everything to tell you what to do, but they don't do it themselves for you or for the other person. And you have to get to a point where you realize you have to reach out for others. You have to say what you feel. You can't care, and I mean this very honestly, you can't care what they say, because they're going to tell you who they are by the lack of commitment or the amount of commitment that they give to you. And so it becomes a very challenging situation that only you can manage, but you've got to reach out for help. I found that I had to change my diet. As Nick said, I went to a plant-based diet. I meditate. The stress was overwhelming. The need for socialization, however you want to term that socialization, saved my life. Saved me from, who knows what could have happened. It's sort of like being a fireman. Nobody reminds the firemen of how much they saved the building. They just said the building was saved. But if they weren't there, then the building burned to the ground. Or if you weren't there and you got got hurt or tripped or fell or were depressed or not paying attention to something because you were overly tired, overly stressed out, overly overrun with the rigors of being with someone who can't take care of themselves. So the thing that is so important that I want to stress to all of the people listening and viewing this webinar is that you're not alone. It's going to be difficult. You're going to reach out and you're going to be disappointed by many, but you can't stop reaching out to find those few people that will stand with you, stand beside you, stand behind you. You're going to feel that, what does this all mean? You know, every 66 seconds, just Alzheimer's alone, somebody is being diagnosed. Well, what most people don't realize, that's close to 10,000 people a week being diagnosed, and 2 people taking care. It's another 20,000 of people like myself and like many of you out there who are going to be caregiving. And that number is going to only exponentially increase over the next 20 or 30 years if we don't find a cure. You know, everyone, we're overwhelmed with COVID, but this is a COVID situation that's been going on for quite a while. And within the African American and Latin communities, it's, you know, 1.5 to 2 times the total number of the general non-white white population. So we've got a tsunami, and it's still going out, but it's going to come back in. And the sad thing, or the realistic thing that you should know, 1 out of 3 people at 85 is going to have some form of dementia. If you're African American, it's going to be a coin flip. It's going to be basically 1 out of 2. So that means, you know, it really is a 21st century civil rights issue. The people behind us, our children and our children's children, are going to have to take care of us, or the assets that we obtain are going to be used to maintain that person's dignity till their passing. People are going to have to give up their dreams of having a second home, or sending their kids to college, or having that at retirement, having that ability to just breathe. So caregiving today is one of the most important situations as the baby boom population, you know, at 66 years of age, I now know this is something I'm going to have to deal with the rest of my life. I don't want to burden my daughter with this. I want to make sure that she has an opportunity to live and breathe in her own time, her own space, and not have to worry about taking care of me. I think it's very important as a caregiver to understand and to appreciate how important it is to downsize, how important it is to be able to talk to a therapist, how important it is to be able to tell someone in your family, I need more help from you. You're just not, I can't do this by myself. And usually, if they don't, you don't get angry, but you never ever stop letting them know, I need more help. And you document it. So when you have to make real tough decisions, they can't come in willy-nilly and just say, well, you should do this. Well, you weren't there then, and you weren't there before that, and you weren't there before that, and now I've got to make the decision. These are all the things that are tough, that people have to understand are part of the process of, if you get lucky, you get old. And if you get old, who's going to be there for you? I think it's very important for, you know, people who have children who are now moving into the workplace to also have some sort of health insurance that manages catastrophic diseases. So if you do get sick, you do have some sort of insurance that allows you to not squander all of your resources on just taking care of that person that you love. I want you to understand one very important thing. We live in the greatest country in the world, but we all have to be advocates for a better health system, as Nick has said and the doctor has talked about, because we've got a population, this baby boom population, that's going to have unprecedented burden of being cared for as we move through the 20s. So I want to thank you for allowing me to express my opinions, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dan. That was really a heartfelt message. I really related to that because I'm a former caregiver too. So thank you. I think we all really appreciated that. All right, so we've got some questions in the chat box, and so I'm going to start going through them for sort of first come, first serve. I think the first one is for Dr. Bell. There's a question, what would you say are the impacts of well, maybe Dr. Bell or Nick, what would you say are the impacts of environmental stressors like community violence and poverty on cognitive health?
That's an excellent question, because community violence, the stress related to community violence, takes a toll on everyone's cognitive health. And it is a large stressor as you're aging, because if you live in a community that has lots of violence and you cannot go outside, that means that you can't have the engagement with other people, the social gatherings, because you're afraid to go out in your neighborhood. So that's a huge stressor. It causes isolation, and we know that isolation is damaging.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so the next question is, again, I think this might be for you, Dr. Bell. Are there differentials in cognitive health that can solely be attributable to one's ethnicity?
Well, I was mentioning during my talk that African Americans are at greater risk of developing cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease, and it's not solely related to our comorbid conditions. Our other diseases that we also have a high prevalence of, such as hypertension, diabetes, the cardiovascular illnesses, there are probably other factors, other health disparities that also contribute to cognitive decline. We live in communities sometimes where we don't have the access to healthcare. We don't have access to the appropriate foods. The food deserts that Nick mentioned are the kind of communities that we have. You know, you drive through neighborhoods and you don't see a grocery store for miles. Now, somebody without a car, how are they going to get to the store? Those are also contributors to decline in cognition because you don't have the proper food. So those are other health inequities that have to be addressed by society.
Okay, so the next question, I'm not sure what it says, is WW a good plan for cognitive health? I'm not sure what WW is.
I think that must be Weight Watchers.
Oh, maybe. Okay. Ah, good. Okay. That's what it is. Is Weight Watchers a good plan for cognitive health?
Which calls itself WW now. So
okay.
Any program that reduces obesity is a good plan for overall cognitive health. I think over the years, with their association with Oprah, they have changed their what do you call it? Their weight loss philosophy to be more of a lifestyle type of dietary philosophy, and that fits with the current thinking of, increased vegetables, not measuring your food, but increasing the appropriate ingredients in your food. So I would think it's a good plan, but it's as good as any other plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your expert advice. All right, so this question is for, there's a question for, well, maybe it's a comment for Dan. It said, Dan, you are so on point with all of this. We are not alone. My mom is so verbally abusive that it hurts my heart. She was never this person.
You know, their brains are disintegrating, and hate the disease and love the person.
Yes, yeah.
And the most important thing I've learned in life in general through this whole thing is that you have to think before you feel. And if you step back a minute and you go, you know what or where she was, and you know that she's not the same. And you have to almost, you know, the thing is, I found out when Barbara would have those moments, I would do something that would totally distract her. Like I would start coughing, or I'd start laughing hysterically, or I would do something that they'd lock into something else. And you find out that they change automatically because it's almost reptilian, that it's fight or flight, or they're trying to, you know, they're looking through a mirror that has been shattered and the pieces are being put back into the frame. And you're looking at them as if the mirror is whole. And so you have to understand it's not them.
Okay, yes, thank you. And I think I'm getting a lot of messages here, and they're understanding, and a lot of people are going through it, and they really appreciate your comments and your honesty and openness. All right, so Nick, there was a question from Gina. She says, I have to ask, what are those 3 herbs that are so very protective? Did you mention?
Yeah, in Ikaria, there's 3 herbs. There's oregano, a rosemary, and a dandelion. And the whole dandelion. And what they ended up doing is they mixed it into a tea.
Okay.
That they ended up drinking, and some physicians believe that it worked as a diuretic to lower the swelling of the vessels that kind of supported you later in life.
Okay. Let's see if thank you. Okay, I'm trying to see. I think that's about, does anyone else have any questions? I'm surprised. Oh, one person said, I'm surprised to see Blue Zones not in New York. Are there any neighborhoods that would benefit from this? Awesome presentation.
We're not in New York yet. We're in conversations around it, but it really, again, it comes down to getting that right readiness and getting the right partnerships in a community just to make sure, and the right resources, just to make sure you're successful. But we'd love to work there.
All right, sounds good. All right, for Dr. Bell, I don't know, it says improper medication which affects dementia and Alzheimer's, or taking too many medications. I'm not sure what she means by this. Is Shasta Hadi? Can you
Well, I did mention that improper use of medications and being in a situation where your healthcare providers don't know all the medications that are being prescribed can become a problem if they're mixing medications that don't go together because of drug interactions, because they don't know what you're taking. So it really, although, I mean, it'd be nice if we lived in a perfect world, but we don't. So it's on the patient and their families to make sure that they carry and bring that complete medication list every time they see their healthcare provider.
I'd like to say something real quick. When we had a situation where my wife was given antidepressants and it was misdiagnosed, and the caregiver has to be really on top of it, because you know, it's sort of like putting nitroglycerin into gasoline in the brain. I mean, she was hallucinating. She was going through things that we couldn't figure out. And so you cannot just assume that just because a person is a doctor, that they make the right diagnosis. You have to be proactive. And if you note, and you have to notice if things change dramatically or even subtly, you have to communicate, and you cannot be afraid to get a second opinion.
Yes, exactly. And that happens often in within the African American community. So
Too
thank you for bringing that up. All right, so I think what we're going to do now is move on to our videos, because we've got some great videos coming up. Next, we're going to be viewing a cooking demo by Melba Wilson of Melba's Restaurant in Harlem. And Melba has been in the restaurant and catering business for over 16 years, and she generously supports many causes, one of which is Alzheimer's disease. She's the author of Melba's American Comfort, and for this conference, she has created a recipe specifically for CaringKind that reinforces one of Blue Zone's principles for longer living. So grab a pen and paper so you can recreate this dish at home to enhance your longevity. So let's take a look at the video.
Hi, I'm Melba, born, bred, and buttered in the village of Harlem. I'm super duper excited to have you here with me on behalf of CaringKind. We are going to be cooking up some delicious eats for you today. What are we making? We are making my favorite black-eyed pea stew. Yes, I did say black-eyed pea stew. You know, it's the new year, and there's nothing better than starting at the new year with some black-eyed peas. After all, black-eyed peas do represent luck, and I want to make sure that we have a blessed and a lucky 2021. All right, let's get started. First, we're going to start off with some olive oil. Make sure that you have your saucepan on medium. We're going to take our olive oil and just pour it in there. I'm very dramatic, so I like to go up and down. You know, there's not a lot of theater, so I've got to bring the theater when I'm in the kitchen. Onions. I love onions. We're going to take our onions, put those down there, and you can hear them sizzle. Garlic. Who doesn't love garlic? I think everything's better with garlic. I'm going to saute that. Just let it sizzle. Cook that down for about 2 minutes. I love the smell of onions and garlic. And normally I have a little trilogy. Normally I use onions, garlic, and green peppers or red peppers. Today we're not going to put any peppers in here, but normally that's my go-to trilogy. I wish you guys had smell-o-vision. Already, we're just getting started and this is already smelling good. So I'm going to let that sit for about 2 or 3 minutes. One of the beautiful things about cooking is that it takes patience. So it's an amazing time for me to think about my day, to think about things that make me happy, but it's also a great time that reminds me of my grandmother. My grandmother was born in a very small town in South Carolina called Hemingway, South Carolina. And in our house, everything that happened over food. Every celebration, be it a wedding, be it an anniversary, a birthday, some great news, but also funerals. Everything happened over food. So in me opening Melba's, I knew that it had to be special. And I also knew that I wanted Melba's to be a place where people from all different generations, all different ethnicities, all different religious backgrounds could gather together, and for food to be the common denominator, the thing that actually brought us all together. So I'm gonna take my carrots and I'm gonna saute them and add them to my garlic and my onions. Just mix those in there. When you're cooking stew, sometimes you'll put meat. However, if you are not using meat, the best, something that's gonna give you that same feeling and texture of a protein, mushrooms. I love mushrooms. And they're such a great substitute and very, very healthy. I love mushrooms and mushrooms love me. I love mushrooms and mushrooms love me. I always sing when I eat. I'm in a good space, I feel good, and so I do things that bring me joy. Cooking brings me joy, and singing, although I may not be the best, In my head, I'm better than the rest. It's my story. I'm sticking to it. Oh, this is happening over here. It's about to be a party. It's about to be a party in my house. And now I'm just gonna add a pinch of salt into my mixture. Ooh. Now we gotta throw a little bit over that shoulder, a little bit over that shoulder, and a little bit in the pot, right? There we go. I gotta ask my mother why we do that. And paprika. I love paprika. You know, I think I love everything over here. I just love cooking. So paprika is gonna give it a nice smoky flavor. And when we are making a stew, oh, look at this. This is some good eats about to happen over here, y'all. Can you see this? Can you see how beautiful? And look at the colors that are in there. I love the orange mixed with the earthiness. Here we have Cajun seasonings, onion powder, garlic powder, and ooh, pepper. I love red pepper and thyme. And all of this is gonna go into our stew. First, I'm gonna put my vegetable broth in. I'm going to stir in some tomatoes. Ooh, look at that. And these are tomatoes, fresh tomatoes that I pureed this morning. Let me get this going in here. There we go. My Cajun seasonings are going right in there. And the great thing is that when you have all of your ingredients ready to go, you can just put them in there. That's it. Onion powder, garlic powder, red pepper. Give it a little bit of a, I'm not gonna add all that red pepper in there. And some fresh thyme, which I love. I'm gonna put all the thyme in there. There we go. Before I add my black-eyed peas, I am going to just taste this and see if I need to put a little bit of anything else, a little more red pepper or something. Oh my God, this is so good. Seasoning is perfect. I'm getting a little bit of heat. This is absolutely divine. This is a great stew. The star of the dish, black-eyed peas. So we know black-eyed peas bring you luck, and they're very, very healthy for you. Anytime I can eat black-eyed peas, I do. My great-grandmother, who, God bless her soul, lived to be 105 years old, and she was in her right mind and passed quietly in her sleep. She swore that the reason that she lived so long was because she ate black-eyed peas once every day. I want to live to be 105 too. Here we go. I'm going to add the black-eyed peas in here. If you're going to have black-eyed peas, it's always a great idea to have collard greens lurking close behind. So we're going to take our collard greens, which have been washed and cleaned, and put them right in here in our stew. I'm just going to stir this in, put everything together. Heart healthy, brain healthy, and delish. What more could we ask for? Okay, everything is mixed in. I'm going to put this bad girl on high. You know what? I'm going to put a little bit more salt in here because of the collard greens. I need a little dash of salt. Put the top on, and we're going to let it simmer for 1 hour. It's been about 20 minutes, so I'm going to check in on my stew and see how it's stewing. Stewing, not doing. My collard greens, great color to them, adding lots of flavor and texture. I'm going to put the top back on and let it simmer for a second. It's been about 56 minutes or so, so let's check in on this little girl and see what's happening. Ooh. First of all, the aroma. I can't wait to dig into this stew. Look at this. I'm gonna plate this now. Look at those collard greens, beautiful. I'm gonna make sure I get enough of the stew in there, the juices. There we go. I'm gonna taste this. Delicious. Healthy comfort from my house to yours. A little bit of black-eyed pea stew. You can find this and other recipes in my book, Melba's American Comfort. Enjoy.
All right, wasn't that great? And I have to say that I was fortunate fortunate enough to be there when the demo was recorded, and I got a container full of that stew. I froze it and I took it out a couple of days ago, and it was delicious. So I will be recreating that stew. And it's plant-based. It's got vegetables, beans, and it is one of the 9 lessons for living longer um, from Blue Zones. It's called, one of the lessons is plant slant. So if we can put some plant slant in our lives, I think we can come closer to having some longevity in our lives. All right, so our next video is from Lisa Charles. Lisa Charles is the proprietor of Embrace Your Fitness. She's also the fitness wellness coach and coordinator for the Rutgers University Aging Brain Health Alliance, a former state prosecutor who has reinvented herself through fitness, is committed to helping individuals achieve a greater state of wellness while bringing fun to fitness. So next we're going to see Lisa Charles' exercise video. And she's, as she says, she just wants us to give her 10 minutes. If we can just get 10 minutes in every day, it'll make a big difference in our lives. So let's watch Lisa's video.
Hi everybody, my name is Lisa Charles, but you can call me Coach Lisa. I am an author, a trainer, a wellness coach, and the CEO of Embrace Your Fitness. I'm also the fitness wellness research coordinator for the Aging Brain Health Alliance at Rutgers University, and I'm here today to bring you 10 minutes of fitness fun. I call it Commit, Do, Live, and it is your way, your journey to brain-body connectivity. I call it top-down, inside-out fitness. So what do you need? Well, you see I'm holding this towel. So you say, why is she holding a towel? We're gonna use a towel during the workout, maybe a chair during a piece of a song, but the thing I really need is I totally need a smile. I need your energy, I need your love, I need your commitment to taking your health to another level, because we're in 2021. So how about we start our fitness journey right now? The way we're gonna start is not how you think. I'm not gonna make you jump right now. I just need you to breathe. That's right, breathe. Because one of the biggest components of fitness is posture and breath. And so right now, you hear the beautiful sounds of water. I just want you to let that permeate over your whole body while you roll your shoulders back and down, feeling the muscles along your shoulder blades. Open up that chest, give room for the lungs to expand. Put one hand on the lower part of your belly, one hand in front, and breathe in your nose and out your mouth. Feel your stomach expand as you inhale. And as you exhale, it's like the stomach retreats to the spine. One more, breathe in. Exhale into that hand. On this next breath, I just want you to be super focused and committed to what's going to take place today. Not just with the exercise, but all the rich knowledge you're going to get from all the wonderful guests. Breathing in and exhaling. Center the mind. Be super focused. We're about ready to start your transformation. Just as simple as that. Can you roll the shoulders back? Mobility, movement of the joints is so important with health. Bring the arms up a little. You'll feel the difference in that. Rotation, a little different in your back. Take your arms all the way up. Really rotate them back and forward. Glorious muscles working. And exhale. Keep the breath going. One arm at a time. Can you give me both? all the way back. Wherever you're comfortable doing, rotate. We want mobility, we want stability in all of our joints. Here we go. We're gonna do a little rotation. Top part of the trunk. Knees are facing forward, knees are bent. Just rotating top part of the body. This towel, you can grip the towel and pull as if you're trying to rip it apart. You'll find your arm muscles start to work. Can you give me more of a rotation all through the whole body? Take the elbow to the back. Nice. This feels so amazing. Say, I love it, Coach Lisa. Arms forward, down, lift, lift. So you're coming down and doing a hamstring curl. Arms are tight. Squeeze those arm muscles as you do this. Beautiful. Keep it going. Down and up. Beautiful. Nice. Now we're gonna come down, hold. I love this. Down and sit in that imaginary chair. You're gonna start to fire up that core, which is the center of all of your balance. Here we go. We're gonna get ready to go and movement and take it to the side with rotation. Take it down, still rotating, downward. Beautiful. Did you see I'm staying in that lovely imaginary chair? If you need to come up, you know your body. You can definitely do it from up here too. Nice. Can you give me 2 more? Stay right here. We're gonna lift the knee up. You can stay just like this, crunching that core, blowing the air out. Take the arms up. When the arms are over your head, you create more cardio. Go, go, go. Take that leg back and in, in, in. You can be like this. Yeah. Or you can be down low. Move it. Go, go. Squeezing the back muscles as you bring those arms back. Gonna switch sides. Other leg back, arm out. Bring it in and in, in. The stomach comes in, leg comes in, arms come in. Keep it going. Beautiful. Give me 2 more. 1 more. Oh, you thought it was over. Down in that imaginary squat, or chair, I should say. You're gonna chop, just like this. Chop. Side of the body. Side chop. Oblique muscles. Side of the core. Can you get the other side? Can you give me the same energy? And blow out that air. 2 more. Come all the way down. Wow, guys. That's a way to work the body. Listen up. Feet together. I'm gonna do this next piece, part with a chair, part without. But let's see if we can come all the way down. Bend the knees and come up. Down. Beautiful. Can you reach me? Oh, that feels so good in the joints. Let's see if we can really move that arm. How about this arm? Nice. Hold both arms up and reach to your back. Beautiful, and down. Watch this. You want to have a little fun? And hold it. Oh, twist side to side. guys are gonna grab a chair. Any one of my cheerleaders out there? Give me a nice V. Oh, that feels so good. Lift out of the chest. Mountains. Gorgeous. Grab that towel. Up, down. That's how you use a chair. Oh, hold it up here. Stay here. Can you sweep the chair? Imaginary cleaning the chair with the arms. They help you. This towel will help you. Nice. One leg forward, hips back, and you're gonna grab. Oh, this is so nice. Hamstring stretch. Beautiful. Take that same leg to the back. Straight leg. Can you take your arms over the head? A stretch in your back, your hamstrings. Switch sides. This leg. Hips back. Come down to a nice hamstring stretch. Wherever you're comfortable. Nice. Put down. Take that foot back. Straight leg. Arms up. Feel it. Beautiful stretch. Back of the arms. Back. Back of the legs. Nice. One more. You know what I'm going to give you? Just everything. Oh my goodness, guys. That's like 10 minutes. And I love exercising, like I'm a little crazy, right? But I can get a sweat on in 10 minutes if you squeeze through your muscles. So a couple of things I really need you to really focus on. My takeaways from Embrace Your Fitness is that you got to give me 10. Take 10 minutes will create the most amazing habit in your life, a healthy healing habit that'll help to transform your body and your brain. 10 minutes a day. Can you give me 10? 5 focused breaths a day. That means that you're going to just put on music like we did today and just think about breathing and allow the breath to permeate your body. It will relax you, it will de-stress, and that will also help your brain. And in that process, you're gonna be really focused on the core. We did a lot of standing core. So when you do your workout, you don't have to be doing a sit-up. Sit-ups are things that you can do completely standing. And don't forget, this is a fabulous tool. I used this today, but I got a friend out there and she's gonna toss me something. This is even, whoa. This is what I want you to work up to. That towel becomes this. This band and all of the stretches we did, with the band, now you can add a lot more resistance in it. But this is the first step to doing this. I recommend everyone has something such as this at home. So you're gonna focus on your posture, your breath, you're gonna take 10, you're gonna get a band to stretch, and you're just gonna commit, do, live. You're just gonna do it because that's the way you're gonna transform in 2021. I'm Lisa Charles from Embrace Your Fitness, and I am hoping that I stay in contact with every single person that took part in this workout today. Till next time.
Weren't those videos great? We got a lot of information just in these 10-minute videos. You had plant-based recipe and 10 minutes of breathing and an aerobic workout that will really take us to a place where we can engage in some of the 9 lessons for living longer from Blue Zones. Moving naturally, the 80% rule, stop eating when you're 80% full, plant slant, adding more beans and veggies and fruits in your diet. Wine consumption, 1 and 2 glasses daily is okay. Purpose, have a purpose in life. It creates happiness. Downshift, reduce that stress and create some stress reducing rituals. Belong, be a part of a spiritual community. Loved ones first, make family a priority. Right tribe, be surrounded by like-minded people. A lot of these principles, CaringKind can help you with. All right, they can help you with being a part of the right tribe. You know, if you're a caregiver, you can join a support group. CaringKind has over 80 support groups throughout the 5 boroughs. Move naturally. We have a Connect to Culture program, and we also have Wellness Wednesdays, so we can where you can engage in some healthy activities to move naturally. Having and downshifting and reducing that stress. So we have our helpline is available. You can call us 646-744-2900, and we'll put that on the screen in a minute. And you can take advantage of all of the services that we offer at CaringKind. We have programs, educational programs, so that you can understand what Dan Gasby was talking about in terms of the disease. And when you understand the pathology of the dementia, it really helps you to, as he says, hate the disease, but love the person. So there's a lot to be learned from our educational workshops. He mentioned having your financial affairs in order. We have a legal financial seminar. There's a lot of programs that we have that can help and be assistance to caregivers who are going through this, who are experiencing this journey. So please don't hesitate to contact us. And I thank you so much. If we can incorporate these principles into our lives, it can be the beginning of a journey to longevity and a healthy heart and a healthy brain. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. And I want to thank the panelists who were excellent. I've gotten a lot of comments a lot of compliments from the chat box. And I guess that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conference, and hopefully we'll be able to provide many more in the future. And thank you, Health First.